Welcome back to Bad Attitude C10. Today we'll be installing our dash pad in our C10 that we picked up from Dashes Direct through Summit. Now with this dash pad being at a bargain price, I didn't know what to expect. It just came in a cardboard box and it is plastic wrapped with a little bit of information on it as far as like do not paint, and it did come with the hardware. Well, it came with the nuts that go on the studs. I didn't know what to expect for the price. The quality is pretty fair. It's nicer than what I expected, to be honest. As you can see, there are 7 studs, and it does give you these cheesy little nuts to use that are 3/8. Now guys, I'd like to mention these tools. I did pick these up from Dynamic Tool last year, and I really like them. They're laser etched, and they are K-knurled. So whenever I'm going to use them with the damage to my left hand, I really can't tell how tight I grip stuff, so I do have the dropsies a lot. So this little K-knurled section really does help me. Alright guys, we have 7 studs on this dash pad. The 2 on the outside come in at an angle, and the others come straight down the top. In addition to that, there's 4 holes that come through the bottom that take screws that go into J-nuts that are on your dash. Now the kit comes with the nuts for the studs, but not the J-nuts, or the screws to use for them. Alright guys, before we can get started, we're going to go ahead and remove the swing out bars, and I'm going to use a 3/4 inch deep socket and a 3/4 inch wrench to remove the fastener on the bottom. Now the passenger side swing out bar, we had a little bit of an issue with the pin. I guess we didn't let the bar cool down enough whenever we welded in the end for it, so it's a little snug. So I'm going to kind of use a dead blow to get it out, and then we'll remove the hardware from the bottom. Now the driver's side was just fine. I'm going to order a small reamer bit and go ahead and just ream this top side out a hair, because I don't want to loosen it up too much with a drill bit or something and oversize it, because then it'll rattle, and we don't want that. It's going to be, seeing a lot of street miles. The rattling would drive me batty. Now, as I mentioned, the dash pad did not come with all the mounting hardware, so I did not have all the J-nuts or the screws to install it. So I did buy some from LCM or LMC truck parts for my taillight bezels. I didn't know if they'd work or not, but I figured we could give it a shot. These have a little tab or a tang on the top, and it has a lot more room to slide down, and I don't know if it's going to stay in place. I have 2 that were still there. I was missing 2. They look kind of like the dash bezel ones, but everybody I asked, nobody could give me a straight answer. If these don't work, I'm going to go ahead and just order a set of dash bezel J-nuts and go from there. As you can see here, this thing keeps sliding way down, and I actually tried to bend the tang on one of them to where maybe it wouldn't slide down as far, and it ended up breaking the clip. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and do our initial test fit here and see what happens, and I'm going to go ahead and try to line these studs up and get it to drop down and go from there. Now, I did use an LED headlight to try to give us a little better view, and yeah, I'll mention that in a minute, but right here, yep, we've got a problem. As you can see here, the roll cage is actually creating a little bit of a clearance issue, so using a razor knife, I figured I'd just trim the pad a little bit and go from there. While the driver's side went pretty easy and flawless, I had a little hiccup on the passenger side, and guys, this is exactly why I can't have nice things. The razor blade broke and it skipped down, and sure enough, brand new paint. Yep, I got my first scratch. Go figure. But the thing is, guys, it's not a show truck. It's going to be an everyday driver, so I can get over that. It's not that big of a deal. But I really still wish that wouldn't happen. We're going to run into hiccups like this a lot of the time when you're doing builds and you're modifying or doing custom work. I didn't think I was going to have to cut the dash pad. I was hoping it was closer or snugger to the dash that we had clearance, but that's not the case. So as you can see, I just notched it for the bars. It does say in the instructions not to paint it or anything, so I'm going to leave it like that, and hopefully it doesn't start to try to fall apart or anything sooner than it normally would, because, I kind of cut it down to notch it. Well, that's that. Let's go see if it's going to fit. Before I put the pad back up there to test it, I started thinking about those cheesy little nuts and how they're kind of snug, and when they go on, sometimes they go crooked. So I went on ahead and got a nut driver out and thought maybe I'll just tighten them up and back them off. That way, you know, hey, they're kind of broke in. It might help, it might not, who knows, but I figured I'd do it just before I installed it. So here we go. Well, as you can see, it fell into place pretty easily. So hey, I guess that's a win. I'm going to call it a win anyway. Now guys, I mentioned earlier about using this LED headlamp, and I put it back on right here, and some of the footage you're going to notice is kind of wavy. I don't know if that's just because I'm buying these cheap ass cameras or if it's something that happens to all of us, but I really need to figure out what to do, because I put LED lighting in the shop and I have an LED portable light, but anytime I get my cameras near them that are kind of close, it makes the video wavy. So I don't know if anybody has a remedy for that or not. If you do, please, let me know. Now, before I went through the trouble of putting all these studs in, I wanted to be sure that these J-nuts were going to work. So I skipped over to the first J-nut that I put in from my taillight buckets. And after fighting it, I pretty much realized that, yeah, it's not going to work. Every time I push the dash pad down, it pushed the clip down. So I messed with it, and the more I messed with it, the more frustrated I got, and eventually I just punted. So then I moved over to the original J-nut, and sure enough, it started and went in, got snug, and worked. So I'm pretty much going to have to stop at this point, but before I give up, I want to show y'all where these stud locations are. Now, before I share the stud locations, this shows how it's going to look from the outside through the window on the cage, which I don't think looks too, bad. On the inside, there is a little bit of a gap, but it's still not horrible. I think it's, going to be all right. It's in there. That's the main point. Now, as you can see, it's in there, and it's pretty flush everywhere, and it does have a nice tight fit. But this tang on them dang J-nuts, whatever you want to call them, every time the dash pad pushed it, it scooted it down. So instead of my screw being able to go in that hole, it was hitting between the hole and the tang. So eventually, you just got to be smarter than what you work with and punt. Now, when it comes to these studs, guys, I want to tell you, the ones on the outside corners come in at an angle, and they are in a little bit of a snug spot. But right here, I'm actually putting my hand in through the glove box hole. So without you pulling your glove box out, I really don't see you getting at it. Now, I mean, y'all might be able to do it. If you do, more power to you. The second one is right here to the left. If you're actually sitting in the passenger seat, it's going to be to the right of the lock or the latch for the glove box. So again, glove box is in. I don't see you getting to it, but you might. The one to the right of that, or if you're sitting in the passenger seat, it's going to be to the left, would be where the vent for the defroster hole is. And it's just right there, and I can actually stick my finger in there, almost my whole hand, and reach it. Now, laying underneath, if you scoot over to the right again, this is where the fins or the grid is cut in the dash for the stereo speaker. And right below it, if you have an AC cab, there is the AC vent. The stud is right above it. So if you have a factory AC, you're going to have to move all that tubing. The next one's right back over to the next defroster vent. And you go to the right of it a little bit, almost to where the center of the dash pod would be. You're going to have your other one. Now, over from the dash pod one, when you scoot over to the far corner, again, that one's going to come in at a different angle. And this picture, sorry, it's kind of bouncy, and you can really see the waves now from that LED headlamp. Again, guys, if y'all know a remedy for that, please let me know. Now, here's a picture with the location of them 7 studs. Now, it's roundabout approximate because it's at an angle, but hopefully it helps.